Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of School Council Opportunities for Progress and Enrichment Scope. This is part of our ongoing series of school council information and parent caregiver information. Tonight's presentation will be on whoa, school council elections. And we hope that this information will be of a true value to you in helping to have your elections and to move forward with the first part of the election for the membership, and then to move forward in terms of electing your executive. For tonight's presentation, well, first I'll do the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge we are hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas and of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. And for this evening's presentation, we have myself, Ricardo Francis. I'm with the Parent Caregiver Community Engagement Office, managing school councils and community liaison groups. And I'd like to introduce Nancy Angevine Sands.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nancy Angevine Sands. As Ricardo said, I am a consultant for parent and caregiver engagement through my company with Equal Step, but I am also a vendor with the board and have for the last couple of years been working with the Parent and Community Engagement Office to support parent and caregiver engagement.
Okay, as you'll notice here, this is the purpose of school council. We've directly taken this from Regulation 612, and I'm just going to expand on what the purpose of school council is really to strengthen the partnerships between schools and parents and caregivers. And how this is done is through active participation between parents um, and on how the council works. And one of the things is to improve student achievement by supporting learning and well-being. Secondly, is to enhance the accountability of the education system to the parents and the community. So it's a level of transparency. And the last thing is to provide a platform for parents to have voice um, and be included in the school decision making and planning.
So let's begin about what the role of the school council is. And all of these things can be found in Regulation 612. For those of you who don't know what that is the legislation that was acted in the mid-90s to create school councils. So you serve as an advisory body. And this is very important to remember. We can't make decisions about what's going to happen at the school, but we can provide advice both to the school, the principal, and also to the Board of Education. The principal is required when you as a council provide advice, the principal is required to then reply back to that advice. What does that mean? That means that they either say, yep, we like that advice, we're going to go forward with it, and here's how it's going to roll out. Or no, that won't work, and here is why it won't work. We can work to see if we can find some way around that. Or they can say, you know what, we like the idea, the concept. It doesn't quite work the way the council has suggested, but let's work to find how we can make it work. You are also required to consult with the parents and caregivers in your school on school matters. That means the decisions that the council takes around the council table aren't just the opinions of those who sit at the table. Your council members have to go out and go to the margins, as I've said many times, talk to people and find out what they think about things, or surveys, any number of stuff we've talked about in the past. You are required, if you wish to develop bylaws that will guide your operations. You must maintain records, both minutes and financial records, and they must be maintained for at least 4 years. And you also have to submit an annual report, including your financial activities. Submit that to your principal at the end of the school year, and he or she will then forward it on to the board.
I was just wondering, Nancy, as I'm looking at this developed bylaws, because we already have the bylaws, so I'm just wondering if we if adopt the bylaws that we have and make modifications if for your to be more specific to the needs of the school, rather than because it's already there for them, right? So not for them to start creating their own.
Well, no, I think when they talk that's right. But when they talk about developing bylaws, because they are allowed to add some, if it doesn't appear in the template in the bylaws that are provided, they are allowed to add something that speaks specifically to their community. But that has to then be sent to the PCCEO for approval.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification, Nancy. Uh, Next slide.
So what's the role of councils? Well, your role is to remember the mandate, pupil achievement and accountability of the system. So first is to focus on improved learning for all students, remembering that that learning doesn't occur just in the school. It occurs at home too, with parents learning how to support their kids' learning at home. To maintain a school-wide perspective on issues, to make sure you get ideas from all over. They won't, all your parents won't agree on everything. That doesn't mean you can't move forward, but what's the main thing you're hearing? And to represent and communicate the views of the school community to the principal and the educators within your school, and also to your board where appropriate.
I like that because basically the school council acts like almost like a conduit to bring those ideas from the school community to the principal. I like that. Yeah,
So what's the school council's purpose? Well, we've seen this one already.
that's right.
Yeah, I think you're going backwards. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that, guys. I'm sure most of you know this, but I'll just go over it if anyone's watching that doesn't know it. The membership of the school council as dictated in Regulation 612. There are parent caregiver members. The number is to be selected by your council and appear in your bylaws. Please note that it's not a maximum of, you have to pick an exact number. So you have to have a minimum of 5. I've always thought that 10 is a good number unless you're a really active and engaged council. Then you could be 15, 20. And you should be careful. You don't want to have too many people. You don't want to have 50 members, for example, 40, 50. That's, as my mother said, too many cooks spoil the broth. Parents can be engaged in other things in working groups or committees. So you have to have parents as the number as determined by your bylaws, a teacher rep. If you want to have maybe 2 teachers sharing the job, you can do that, but it's just 1 vote. A support staff rep, that could be an EA, office manager, one of your janitors, whoever's working in the school that is not a teacher. Again, you could have 2 people sharing the job, but it's just 1 vote. In secondary schools, they're required to have a representative from their school council. In elementary schools, you are not required to have a student rep, but you could, and that person would be chosen by the principal. Then once you have your group elected and you have your executive and you're starting to work and you're starting to think about what are your objectives for the year, that's when you start to think about who's your community representative. And you would go out, find a community representative, vote as a council to appoint them to your council. And finally, the principal. The principal isn't technically a member of council because the principal is going to receive the advice and you can't vote on the advice you're going to receive, but a council meeting cannot exist unless the principal or their designate is present. So we consider the principal a member of the council as well.
Yeah, and one of the things that Nancy had pointed out is when you have large numbers, it's also difficult when you have like 50 people and you need 26 people to show up and they're not showing up, then therefore you're not meeting quorum. If you're not meeting quorum, you're not able to have an official school council meeting. So bear that in mind when you're selecting those numbers.
So what are the duties and responsibilities of a council member? These are the important ones: to participate on any committees, working groups established by the school council. You don't have to participate on all of the committees, but the hope is that your school council members will participate on at least one committee. To contribute to the discussions of the school council, and to go out and solicit the views of the other parents and caregivers and members of the community, and then come back to the council table and share what you've learned from the people you spoke to. And finally, to observe the council's code of ethics and their established bylaws. If you don't worry, if you don't have code of ethics written out, you would run by the code of ethics of the TDSB. There's also code of ethics available in the school council handbook that you can find online. What is the term? Well, the term for each school council member is 1 year. It runs from the date that you were elected until the date of the next election. Now, elected or appointed, I should say. If during the year you have some vacancies and you're going to fill those vacancies through appointments, that term still runs until the next election. It doesn't run a year from when they were appointed. It runs until the September or early October of the next year. You may seek additional terms. One thing that you may want to consider as a council is one article that you might want to add to your bylaws is putting a limit on the number of consecutive terms that a council member can serve. So if you think a council member shouldn't serve more than, let's say, 3 consecutive terms, so they can serve 3 terms, then they can be off for a year, then they could come back if they were still interested. So what positions make up the executive? The regulation 612 speaks to needing a chair and or co-chair. If you just have a chair, then you can choose to have a co-chair or a vice chair. We wouldn't suggest having a co-chair and a vice chair. That's becoming a little bit too top heavy. Your bylaws that you would add would then decide if you were going to have other executive members. Regulation 612 doesn't speak to any other ones. They leave it to you as a school. So most schools they put the treasurer on the executive, they put the secretary on the executive. Some schools, if they have committees that are in their bylaws that must work every year, sometimes they appoint the chair of those committees to the executive. It's not necessary. The thing I want you to remember most is the executive has no more powers than any of the other members of council. You do have more responsibilities, whatever your job is, as chair, co-chair, as secretary, as treasurer, but you have no more power or decision-making power than anyone else. So let's look at the election. Now that we know who we're going to elect, how do we do it? We suggest forming a planning committee. The principal in Regulation 612 is responsible for much of the work around planning for an election and operating the election. But we all know our principals are busy. So if it's a council, work with your principal, form a planning committee. We suggest having them start in May or June of the previous year. Then they can go out during the summer, and when they're seeing their friends at the park, at the pool, wherever, they can talk to people they know and encourage them to consider running for council. They're responsible, the committee, for planning and holding the election for parents, choosing the time and the location of the election, and preparing and distributing the information about the election, what it is, when it is, where it is, why it is, and including the nomination forms as well. Again, I want to emphasize that each of these jobs that I've named here is a responsibility of the principal to make sure that they're out. For example, notification of an election must occur 14 days before the election, but a planning committee can do a lot of that work for the principal. So, as I said, the principal must publicize the election day at least 14 days prior to the election. The information about the candidates should go out at least 1 week before the election. Here's who's running. It's up to you whether you want them to provide a little bit of bio. That's not required. It's up to each council. When you get to election day, whether you some schools hold it over the whole day. Most schools hold it at the first council meeting. The principal supervises the election day proceedings. All right. The chair would begin the meeting, hand the meeting over to the principal. The principal would say, all right, here are the ballots. Here are the names of the people who are running. And we are going to vote now, secret ballot, ensure that everyone is doing a private ballot, that other people aren't looking at it, aren't talking about it. Again, a secret ballot. And then the principal counts the ballots. We suggest in the presence of at least 2 parents who are not election candidates. And also the ballot results, and what I mean by that is the number count, that should remain confidential. The principal will come back and say, these are the people who won the election. Now, I don't know if it's on the next slide or not, so I'll just mention it now. There's some confusion sometimes around how many you get to vote for. So the ballot could have, let's say you have 20 candidates and you have your bylaws call for 10 parent members. So the ballot could have 10 blank spots and the 20 names are up on a board for people to write down. Or you could receive a ballot with all 20 names, just like when you go to vote in a regular election, municipal or federal election. It could have all 20 names there. Each parent gets to vote for, remember, we need 10 members. Each parent gets to vote for 10 parents out of the 20 that they want. They don't vote just one person and then the top things. They get to vote for 10 people that they want, and then they're counted.
Yeah, so it's really up to 10 because you can just vote for one if you want. It doesn't, so as
Yeah,
long
up
as
to, yeah.
not in excess of 10.
Yeah, you can't go in excess of 10. Let's go to the next one because I think there's more of it on that next slide. No.
Nope.
Okay, so I wanted to say one more thing about that, and now it's left my mind. Okay, so okay, it'll come to me. Thank you.
Oh, and you were probably going to speak to the fact that in terms of the ballots, there's only one ballot per person.
Oh yes, you only get one ballot per person. You can only vote. You know, if there's online voting is allowed and in-person voting is allowed, you can only do one or the other. You come once, you get one ballot, you make your choices. Thank you.
Okay, so the elections of the of the parent and caregiver representatives. Now, in order to be eligible to vote, you must have a student enrolled in the school, and you must be considered the parent, caregiver, or guardian of that parent. Um, and as Nancy mentioned earlier, as a parent, you can either nominate, um, self-nominate, or nominate others. But if you're going to nominate others, they must accept the nomination in order to be put on the ballot. Voting is in person or virtual but there is no proxy voting. And the other thing is, on the day of the elections, individuals cannot be nominated from the floor. Um, but if you're not there and you're nominated, you could still the people could still vote for you. And and the bylaws, your bylaws are determine the positions that people will serve. As Nancy indicated, there are the executive positions that you can have, but there's other positions that you may create. But if you do create them, and I'm just going to make sure this is clear, that if you do create those a new position, like suppose you say, I want a position for fundraising, that individual is not just going. That position will be maintained throughout your bylaws. It can't be just for the one term. And
Can
then,
I just, yeah, can I just add a clarification in there? And I think you said it earlier, but I think it's worth clarifying because a lot that we've seen issues from school councils.
Mhm.
The first part of the election is electing your parent members.
That's right. Membership, yes.
After you have your members elected, hopefully the teachers and the non-teaching staff have and students have elected theirs and they're at the meeting as well. When everybody is together, that's when all of the elected members then choose their executive. And that's when they vote for the executive, as Ricardo said, as dictated by your bylaws.
And then finally, if there's a tie, the last spot, the winner will be chosen by a random draw, because we just can't keep going, going on forever in terms of trying. So it just you throw the person's name into the hat, the person's name into the hat, and then you select next. Okay, and finally, when we speak about um, the parent representation, we speak also about whether or not individuals, if you cannot fulfill the number of positions, let's say you have six positions, and you only have six individuals interested, they're acclaimed. Um, if positions are not filled, you can appoint individuals throughout the year. The only thing I'm just going to add to this appointment if is only if positions are uncontested. If they're contested, meaning if there's two or more individuals that demonstrate interest, a vote must occur. Is this me or you, Nancy?
Okay.
I guess it's me. So the So I'm just going to read it as it said. So the parent caregiver engagement is essential for a thriving school. Because the whole idea is for the principal and staff and community to have a full understanding of what those needs are, what that focus is on that school, what sort of activities we want at that school. So the school council helps provide for this vision. Um, and at the end of the day, though, the principal has the final say of the school. It's his house, and so he's responsible. But the thing is, um, it's just in terms of there has to be reasons sometimes if a decision is made to the alternative as to why this is being made. And the other thing, one of the things I'm going to also point out here is school council is not a platform for people to bring their personal issues to it. The whole idea of school council is to look at things in the global sense. So what, and in terms of bringing the global sense, is the idea of bringing those ideas and recommendations to the principal for consideration. Do you wish to add anything here, Nancy?
No, I think it's, as we've said in many of our webinars, it's about building trust. We know in our personal relationships, when we trust somebody, we're more willing to work with them, listen to them, share with them. So, about council building trust amongst themselves, building trust with their parent and caregiver community, building trust with their principal, building trust with their teachers. When
Yeah.
that happens, I've been on councils myself where that has occurred and things have been wonderful. I've been on councils where that hasn't occurred and things have just been like one hurdle after another. So it's about building relationships, and from relationships come trust, and from trust comes what we're talking about and what we all want.
Yeah. And I just want to add to that in terms of those relationships, in terms of how that process occurs. Your co-chairs are responsible for delivering that information to your principal. As well, we kind of like glossed over the whole idea of the subcommittees that school councils can have. Again, those subcommittees report to the school council chair, who brings it to the school council, who brings it to the principal. So it's always the chairs that are having that communication with the principal. And finally, these are some things that are we're calling good to know. And the school council handbook, regulation 612, of course, your school council bylaws. We in other presentations we speak about what the multi-year strategic plan is. Get to know what it's about. And then the parent and caregiver engagement policy and parent concern protocols. Now, all of this information is available to you on our website, and all you have to do if you are unable to scan this QR code is you just have to go to Google, type in TDSB School Council, and our webpage will be available to you. If there's anything that is not available that you wish to speak to, you could put that in the concern box. Just put in terms of those things that you'd like to speak to. And finally, I just like to also share our contact information. You can contact myself via email and Nancy via email, as well as you have a our phone number. We're usually very good at responding within 24 hours. And we're also really looking to find your feedback in terms of upcoming presentations and things that we can offer to assist you in having a successful school council. Do you wish to add anything, Nancy?
I just want to say good luck with your elections. Get out there, try to find people who might be interested. Talk to teachers, talk to your principal, talk to other teachers, talk to people you know that maybe they know somebody who would be interested, and build a really good council and have a really, really good year.
Yeah, yeah, because you have opportunities in the schoolyard, after school, just meeting and talking to your parent community. Anyway, we'd like to thank you for joining us for this presentation and have a really good night.